Weird here. All right, so today we're going to look at a percent proportion. And so we know proportions are those fractions, right? So I know that I'm going to have two fraction bars within my percent proportion here, right? A proportion is two fractions that are equal to each other. That's what the definition of it is. So in a percent proportion, one ratio compares a part to the whole, okay? And so this shows that the equivalent is written as a fraction over 100. So one thing that we want to talk about is what even is a percent? And a percent symbol tells us an operation, okay? Your percent symbol really tells you to divide by 100. So maybe you've heard of that before, maybe you haven't, but I'm telling you right now, percent is not there just to look fun. It tells us to do an operation. It tells us to take that number and divide it by 100. That's really what that number is, okay? Same way that, like, if we square something, it's little squared symbols in there to just look nice. It really tells us that number times itself, okay? So it's the same thing as this. It's a symbol that we use to show an operation. And so what I want to do is you can write your percent proportion two ways. The first way is what I just said, the part over the whole. So let's think about what percents are, right? Like if I have a 75% score on my test, that means out of the whole test, I got 75% right. That was the part that I got right over the whole amount of tests, okay? And so then that's equal to percent over 100. But that can somewhat confuse us, especially when we start looking at problems like 1 and 2. It's sometimes hard to figure out what is the part, what is the whole, right? If I get 10 out of 15 questions right on the test, I know I got 10. That's the part that I got right. Out of the whole, there's 15 questions. But they're not all worded like that. So another way we can think about this is over of equals percent over 100. And I would memorize this second way because this often helps us when we can't easily tell what is the part versus what is the whole of my problem, right? If it's something easy like a test, it's very easy to tell, oh, I have 10 questions on this test, I got 6 right. 6 out of 10, right? 6 divided by 10, that would be my percent. So what we can do is we can look at some key words. So for number 1 here, how we use the is over of equals percent over 100 is by looking at where are my numbers, what kind of word is it around, what word is it associated with. So for number 1, it tells me 18 is what percent of 40. So 18 is what percent of 40. So some kind of keywords, 18 is. So that's the number that's going to go on top of my fraction. So I'm going to write this one more time. Is over of equals percent over 100. Okay, so that would be 18. It tells me 18 is what percent? I don't know what percent, so that's what I'm trying to find. So remember, we always have to have a variable. So this over 100 is always going to stay there. The percent over 100 is always going to be there. I don't know what percent, so that's where I'm going to put my variable. And then of 40, that 40 is around the word of, and it's associated with that. Sometimes you have to look a little bit more carefully. It's not just as easy as saying like, oh, they're right next to each other, because sometimes it can be around 2 words you have to pick. And that would be my proportion here. So 18 is what percent of 40, okay? So that's how I'm going to solve this. I'm solving for the percent. And so then we can cross multiply. So I have 18 times 100 equals x times 40. So I get 1800 equals 40x, and then I can divide by 40, and that will give me my answer, okay? So the same solving as we've been doing this entire time. So at this point, we should be getting better at solving these. So I have 1800 divided by 40, which should give me 45. Good. Okay? So I know that that's maybe a little weird right off the bat, so let's try that again. And I think once we get this page done, you'll start getting used to how it's going to get set up. So number 2, what percent of 75 is 80? So my question again is what percent? So if I set up my percent proportion, I don't know what percent. I don't see a percent symbol in this problem. So that's what I'm trying to find. If you see a percent symbol, then that number has to go in for your percent. But I don't even see that. Then of 75, that's going to go on the bottom, is 80. So then I put the 80 on the top because that's where the is goes. Okay? And then the 100 always stays on the bottom there. So you know for sure 100 is always going to go here because we're talking about a percent. Okay? So then I can cross multiply. So we have 8,000 equals 75x. Right? Again, I'm just multiplying 80 and 100, 75 and x. And then I can divide by 75. So 8,000 divided by 75 does give me a decimal, 106.67. If I want to round, 106.7 is fine. That's going to be my answer. And this makes sense. What percent of 75 is 80? Look at that fraction here. 80 over 75. That's more than 100%, right? That would be like if I got 80 points on a test that was only worth 75, I had 5 bonus points. I would have over 100%. My answer makes sense with the context of my problem. Okay, number 3, what is 30% of 15? So this time I do see a percent symbol. So that's kind of where my mind goes first. I'm always looking for a percent symbol. If I don't see the percent symbol, then that's what I'm trying to find. So I'm going to set this up as 30 over 100. 30%. So wherever your percent symbol is, that's what's going to go on top of the 100. Okay, it's asking me what is 30% of 15. I don't know what is. I don't know. There's no number around that. So I'm going to put the X on top. And then it says of 15, the 15 is going to go on the bottom. Again, notice sometimes people are tempted to put the 30 where the is. But just because they're close together. But that 30 has a percent symbol. So it has to go with the percent spot. So I'm going to now cross multiply. So we have 100x equals 30 times 15. That gives me 450. And then when I divide by 100, I get x equals 4.5. And it's okay to get decimals here. We will often get decimals. So what is 30% of 15? 4.5. That would be like saying I bought something for $15 and I got 30% off. I would say $4.50. That's kind of the application for this. Okay, number 4, find 8.5% of 160. So I'm trying to say, what is 8.5% of 160? Maybe this is another sale, right? I'm saving 8.5%. It's not a lot, but that's how much I'm saving. So I'm going to set up my problem. So the 8.5% is the 8.5 over 100 part. Anytime you see that percent, it has to go over the 100. I don't even see the word is, but I do see of 160. So that 160 is going to go on the bottom. So the X is going to go on top. I don't even have the word is in the problem. That's what I'm trying to find. So then I can cross multiply. So we have 100 times X equals 8.5 times 160 is 1360. And then when I divide by 100, I get 13.6. Okay, I'll do a couple more and then you guys will finish working through these. So number 5, we have 28 is 4% of what number? 28 is 4% of what number? So I see the percent sign. So I'm automatically going to set up that second proportion as 4 over 100. That's 4% written as its fraction. Okay, so then I need the first part. 28 is, because 28 is next to the word is, that's going to go on top. Then it says of what number? I don't know what number, so I have to put the X next to the of. Okay, so then we can cross multiply. So I get 2800 equals 4x. So when I divide by 4, I get x equals 700. 700. Okay, so next one, 86% of what number is 77.4? Again, I see that percent. So I'm going to set up my second proportion as 86 over 100. And then it says of what number? I don't know what number. So I'm putting the X down on the bottom. Of what number? I don't know. And the of goes on the bottom. And then it tells me is 77.4. So I'm going to put the 77.4 on the top. Okay, so then when I cross multiply, I get 86x equals 100 times 77.4, which gives me 7740. And then I can divide by 86, and I get 90. Let's see. Maybe I'll do one more, and then you guys can finish out this page. And we might stop there for this page, but we are going to move on to the percent equation as well. So it's all percents today. So I'll do 7, then you guys can finish 8, 9, and 10. And if that goes okay, we'll probably move on to the next page. All right, so number 7, find 28.5% of 200. I see the percent, so I'm going to have to write 28.5 over 100. That's my percent symbol. If you don't see a percent symbol, that's where your x goes. So again, if you don't see a percent symbol in your problem, you're automatically putting x over 100. Okay, then the first part of my fraction. Find 28.5% of 200. So the 200 has to go on the bottom. I don't even see the word is. So this is just like number 4. So I need to put the x on the top. I'm trying to find what is 28.5% of 200. So then when I cross multiply, I get 100x equals 200 times 28.5 gives me 5,700. And then when I divide by 100 on both sides, I get x equals 57. Okay, so go ahead and try 8, 9, and 10. 51.2. So overall, not too bad, not too bad. And we'll do more practice with this tomorrow, and we will kind of fill everything into the study guide because I know it can get kind of weird. But we'll get used to it. We'll get used to how it all is in order. Okay, so then we're going to just skip this entire next page. We're not doing any of the word problems because we will apply this with the project that we're doing. So that's the application. So we're not going to spend time with the word problems in the notes because we kind of do that with the project later on. And I think that that goes better than just doing word problem homework. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the percent equation, and this is the last thing that we're going to do of notes before we move on to the big project, okay? So we also have our percent equation, and this can be used when you have a special type of problem. It's a very specific way that it's worded, okay? So my percent equation is a quick way to find a part of the whole. And so we do this by multiplying. So my first blank is multiplying. So we're going to multiply the whole by the percent written as a decimal, okay? So this is a very quick way to find your answer. And this is a quick way that we can calculate tax, tip, interest, like lots of things that deal with percents in real life. This is the operation that we're doing. So you're going to take the part. So the part is equal to the whole times your percent written as a decimal. So what does this mean? So let's look at 1 through 6. That's all we're doing here, 1 through 6. Notice how I'm always given the same two things. I'm given the percent and I'm given the whole. Because remember, the whole number is of 90, of 175, of 28, of 300, and so on. So that word of, that is the bottom number. That is the whole. So this is the same thing as me asking you, like if you go to a restaurant and your bill is $35, I want to say, find 20% of a $30 bill? That's what you need to do, right? When you go and you tip, you usually want to tip 20%. So what operation are we doing? We multiply. Remember, the word of is also kind of like that multiplication word. We talked about that at the very beginning. So it's kind of tying all of it together here. So if I want to find 12% of 90, that could be, well, maybe I had a $90 purchase. I'm saving 12%. I want to know how much I'm saving. So what I can do is I can multiply the whole, which in this case is 90, by my percent. But here's the key thing. I don't want to just type in 90 times 12 because that's going to give me a really big number. There's no way that 12% of 90 is a number bigger than 90. So what we have to do is we have to write it as a decimal. So let's convert. So if I have 12%, Does anyone remember kind of the shortcut for converting percents back into decimals? Also think about what I just said a percent is. What operation are we doing there? How can I convert a decimal back in, or sorry, a percent back into its decimal form? Technically, it says right above with the reminder.
Divided by 100.
Good. Divide by 100. That's what I said. Exactly. That's what I said on the first page. Percent really tells you to divide by 100. But rather than typing in 12 divided by 100 every time, the shortcut with your hundreds is that you move the decimal places to the left. Okay? That's dividing by 100. And you could check that in your calculator. Type in 12 divided by 100. It should give you 0.12, which is what happens if I move my decimal place 2 to the left. Okay? So what I'm really going to type in is 90 times 0.12. And there is my answer. Okay? 1080 or 10.8. So that's it, right? So if you are now at a restaurant and you want to calculate tip, hopefully we already knew that you're taking your bill, your total, your whole, you're multiplying it by whatever the percent is as a decimal. So let's try number 2. I want to find 96% of 175. So I'm going to take that number, that whole number, 75 times 96, but I have to write it as a decimal. So if I move that over 2 places, I get 0.96. 175 times 0.96. So I get 168. Okay? Again, you can only use this kind of shortcut percent equation when you're given the whole and the percent. It does not work if you're given the part and the percent. Okay? It has to be the whole thing. All right, number 3. What is 27% of 28? So again, I'm going to take 28 times 0.27. I move that decimal place over 2 times to the left. So 28 times 0.27 equals 75.6. Okay? So always kind of keep a lookout for these types of problems. You can always use this. You can always use the percent proportion, but this should help you go a little bit faster. What is 48.5% of 300? So we're going to take 300 times, here's where my decimal is. If I move it 1, 2 to the left, make sure you still include that 5 at the end, times 0.485. So 300 times 0.485 gives me 145.5. All right, number 5. Find 2% of 138. So this one could get kind of hard. 2%, here's my decimal. If I move it 1 space to the left, I have to move another space to the left. What happens? What has to go in this spot? 0. Good. So anytime that you have a percent less than 10, you have to add in an extra 0. 0.02 is 2%, not 0.2. 0.2 is 20%. So you have to add in an extra 0 there. So I'm really going to do 138 times 0.02. Otherwise, you get this one wrong. So you get 27.6. And then finally, what is 81.25% of 248? Well, I can take 248 times, if I can convert that 1, 2 to the left, 0.8125. Make sure to not forget any of your numbers. Okay, so I get 201.5. So that's your kind of key thing to memorize as well, is you can always use the percent proportion here. You can always do the is over of equals percent over 100. But save yourself some time. If you notice, you're given the percent, you're given the of, you're not given anything to do with the word is, then you can use this method. Okay? So that meant, like on the first page there, I could have done that method for, like, number 4. I could have done that method for number 7. So I could do that for number 10, right? Notice how all of those have these X's on the top, right? So if your X is on the top, you can always use the shortcut method, okay? So that